welcome to Politically High Tech with your host, Elias. I am actually happy here, and I know some of you are going to think this is like DEI, identity politics, but if you just get rid of your blinders, I have a great, overwhelming, white, male guests. I'm not against them. It's just statistically true. I did my own statistics. I definitely need more voices. My own extra white women, definitely more minorities. And I'm trying to reach out to them because, look, I want to bring different points of view. I don't want to be an extension of Fox News or even CNN. I don't want to do that. I don't like that. I don't like the two camps and all that. I'm a centrist independent at the end of the day. But before I derail this, I can do that very easily. I have a wonderful guest here, and she has a great journey. I think has amazing value. Whether you're a Christian or you're secular atheist, it don't matter to me. You already know I'm a spiritualist. I believe in a higher power, and if other people don't, to me that's okay. That's. And if you really believe in God's in control, well, you let him take care of that and you stop pretending to be God. This is where things get messy. And look, I love you church people, but I gotta call you out on some things. If you try to act like God, the battle's lost. And that's the biggest sin, even more than murder and all of that. Yeah. Try to replace them, but enough lecture to Christian churchy folks. So I have a guest here and she's gonna share her journey. Her name is Mary Beth O'Connor. And I'm going to be calling her Mary Beth. She requests that. And not just that, it's actually easier for me too. It gives me something to separate many people. Because look, if I have a lot of Marias, a lot of Marys, which one is who, right? Maybe I have to start calling, Mary Martinez, Bree Smith, Mary, I don't know, Papadopoulos, whatever. It's a very common name, let's be honest. But let me be quiet. Let me just have this guest introduce herself. And I don't introduce the guests. I like them to do that because they can represent themselves better than I can, even if I've researched them and studied them meticulously. So take it away. What do you want the listeners and viewers to know about you, Mary Beth?
Yeah, so I tried to sort of capture the arc of the primary story in the title of my memoir, which is From Junkie to Judge, One Woman's Triumph Over Trauma and Addiction, because I grew up in a really violent household. My mother was violent, although things got much worse when she married my stepfather when I was 9, and he was very violent with her. I think we underappreciate just witnessing parent on parent violence and the impact of that. But he was also physically violent with me, sexually violent. It was just a very high stress household where what I did and what happened to me were not very closely connected. And I never knew what was going to happen. It could be quiet for a while, and then you could do one little minor thing that had not been a problem earlier, and suddenly it was a major issue. So a lot of strain. And so for me, I found my first drug when I was 12, and it was Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill wine, alcohol, of course, which is a common starter drug. And it really captured my attention right away because what I noticed was how much better it made me feel, right? I felt like I could sort of take a deeper breath, like my muscles were more relaxed. I really felt like I was laughing and giggling with my girlfriend in sort of like a more openly joyful way. And that really captured my attention. Like, this is a really positive experience. I need more of this. And I say those two things because abuse to drug use and pursuing drugs at a high rate, those are connected, and we can talk about that. But for me, I was using alcohol right away, looking for opportunities. I'd even steal beer from my dangerous stepfather because that's how much I wanted the alcohol. But I also added in weed. There were pills around. I did a lot of acid my sophomore year of high school. And when I was 16, I found what became my drug of choice, which was methamphetamine. And I was shooting meth at 17 years old. I was in full bore addiction when I graduated high school. So it was a very quick and very vicious start. I did leave Central Jersey to come to California to go to college, and I did better for a couple years, but I had a really life threatening kidnapping, 3 men, 6-hour rape in college. I moved in with a violent boyfriend. And it was sort of like my little grip that I had, I lost. And I started using meth again on a regular basis in January of my senior year of college. And I didn't get sober till 32. So it was a really long haul for me. And then just to go quick, I went into rehab. I'm not really a 12-step person, which is Alcoholics Anonymous and all the Anonymouses. Pulled a couple ideas and I support it when it's the right fit. But for me, I built more of what we today would call an individualized recovery plan, pulling ideas from multiple places, but I also had to do a lot of therapy. It turned out I didn't know it, but I had PTSD, and that turned into very severe anxiety. So a lot of work had to be done other than just my sobriety, which is also common. A lot of people, over half of the people when they get sober, have another mental health condition they also need to work on. So my recovery was sort of multi pronged in that way. And then gradually, over time, incrementally, better, better, better. And we can talk about all those different parts of life, whatever's of interest. And eventually I was a federal judge, which is why I call my story From Junkie to Judge. I went to law school at 6 years sober, and I took early retirement. And now I'm sort of an advocate, speaker, writer in the recovery space. So that's the short overview.
Oh, wow. I hope you're really paying attention to that, because despite of so much obstacles, let's be honest, it started off rough. If you want to use video game terminology for some of my younger nerdy fans out there, she started on hard mode right away. That being, I'm trying not to make light of it, but if you want to be for geek to geek, she started, I would say my start of life was not even that rough. I mean, I was exposed to beer and all that because I accidentally drank it like an idiot. I should have paid attention to the taste of the thing because my father at the time was trying to avoid the cops. He put it in the Arizona tea bottle. I was so thirsty, I drank that thing, I got drunk. That's far more sillier and light. And this is why you have to pay attention to people's stories and treat them as individually unique. And I think for solutions for drugs and all that, I think we need to have that approach as opposed to, okay, just take this patch, just do that, it'll go away. And that's probably like step one at best. And at worst, it's just, you just want to shoo that person away, right? Just have a cheap solution, just shoo that person away. Yeah, I definitely want to dig into some of the drug stuff because, a lot of people just stay in that for the rest of their lives and die. I mean, you defy the odds. Even when because a lot of people just stay addicted to drugs for life and that's it. That's where it ends for a lot of people.
I will say to that though, I know we hear all this bad data, like only 5% of people who go to rehab succeed or 15% or whatever it might be, but that's actually not true in the long run. That's really looking at for each effort. So in their lifetime, 75% of the people who qualify under this test, the test in the diagnostic manual that therapists and psychiatrists use, because drug addiction, which the technical name is substance use disorder, that's a mental health disorder. It's in the book of mental health disorders. But 75% of the people who at one point qualify as having a substance use disorder later on will no longer qualify. In other words, they'll recover to the point that they don't pass the test for having an addiction anymore. So there's a lot more success than people realize. It's just that it's usually not on the first effort. And for me, it wasn't either. I mean, I went into an inpatient rehab, which not everybody needs. We could talk about that if you like, but I did. I had a very severe, very long-term addiction. But I used 3 times in my first 5 months. And then I started the clock on what today is 31 years of sobriety. And so perfect abstinence from day one, it happens, but it is not the norm. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is when you stop the drugs, first of all, your brain is screaming at you, you need those drugs, like you need them. But also, substances are usually a pain management technique of one kind or another. So when you take the chemicals away, all of a sudden that pain, all the things that were going on inside, also having to face the way you ruined your life because you're in the midst of an active addiction, all of that is in your face and you don't have any skill or practice at handling it without substances. And so it's really hard to be perfectly absent. Most people can't do it from day one. And that's why I always say the trick is really, it should be about patience and persistence, because persistence is what's going to win the day. Usually it's not perfection.
I agree. And that's how I'm overcoming my problems. Instead of chasing that perfection, that perfect abstinence. I mean, let's be honest. If we're going to be really, really honest, does that really work? I mean, it's just simply a no, right? But like we said, persistence and patience. A lot of people don't have both. I'm persistent, but I'm certainly not patient. As I at least got one of the traits, but patience is like, when the hell is this addiction going to be gone? That's my expectation. Persistence is, okay, plan A failed. It's plan B. Plan B failed. There's C. Plan C failed. Okay, now I go to a drawing board. What went wrong and what went right? And I'm going to emphasize what went right for me. and avoid whatever didn't work for me. I'm not a drug expert, listener, so don't pin me as an expert. That's just disingenuous. That's even defaming me, giving me false credentials because I'm not a drug expert. I just have experience with certain drugs. I'm not a heavy drug user, that I can say, but I like to hear people about that because I do have family members and all that has some addictions, and I mean, even for you, listeners and viewers, not just for me, but for you, you could pick a couple of light bulbs that you didn't even think about or even realize that's possible. So it's just we try this, fail. This person's going to be an addict for the rest of his or her life, or they, whatever gender they identify with, the rest of their life. So I like to see there's hope, and there's certainly hope here. And I said this before. I think solutions needs to be compatible with the person.
Right. I mean, part of it. So, one of the things it makes me think of is sometimes friends or family will tell me, my family members tried everything. They've been to rehab 8 times, they tried everything. And when I ask, what I find out is they actually were offered the same thing 8 times. Okay. And so surprise, surprise, it didn't work. I mean, it can, the fifth time of the same thing might work for some, but really you're right. It needs to be an individualized assessment. And part of that is that for those of us, a majority of us who have another mental health condition in addition to our addiction, that needs to be treated right away from the beginning if they're going to have the best odds of success. So if you or your family member also has depression or anxiety or is bipolar or whatever it is, they should be evaluated before they get into rehab or before their treatment plan is developed to see if they have that other condition as well. And then they should be treated what's called dual diagnosis or co-occurring disorder. Both need to be treated from the beginning. That's going to give them the best odds of success. If you ignore their depression or their anxiety and only treat their addiction, they're going to have a much less likely odds of succeeding, because the symptoms of the mental health will push them back towards using. It's also why sometimes people say to me, do people trade one addiction for another? The likelihood of that happening is going to be much higher if they don't deal with what's underneath their substance use. You have to address what's underneath, what was creating the willingness to have all those negative consequences in your life from an addiction and yet keep using. There's something else going on that needs to be addressed so that they can pull themselves out of it and not trade their drug use for gambling or gaming or whatever else it might be.
That's a very profound point. So, in other words, address the root cause in the first place instead of just replacing an addiction with another addiction. Because that's likely going to happen if we just treat it at a surface or just at a symptomatic level. Correct me if I go off course here. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, we have to deal with what emotional, psychological wound that caused us to want us to have these drugs to make us feel good. We don't do it because we necessarily want to, but we want to, you already point out a bit, alleviate that bad, horrible feeling. It was that emotional, psychological escape, if you will. I call it temporary escape, but yeah, it was escape nonetheless.
Yes.
People do it because it's like, oh yes, I'm so excited to try weed. Or maybe boredom could be a problem too, because some people do try drugs because they're bored. That was that example. So I mean, that's so profound. And sadly, I think these institutions and like the rehabs, they're for profit, so they're not really even. I'm sure some of them know the root causes. This is my cynical belief. You can feel free to disagree, but I think just they allow these people to be just put in rehab or throw a lazy evaluation without, I'm trying not to curse here, just for more profit, because things are run for profit and money, and that does purposely dilute the solutions oriented proposals or plans that I'm sure you're advocating for, instead of just, oh, I want this person to come back to treat the symptom,
Yeah.
come back to increase and maintain that cash flow.
You're right. I mean, there definitely are way too many cases of facilities that are getting licenses pulled eventually, but not soon enough because they're creating this turnstile behavior, or they're not doing what they say they're going to do. And that relates to another area we could talk about, which is that a lot of times it's hard for people to evaluate whether this is a good treatment facility or not a good treatment facility. It's hard to get sort of an apples to apples comparison when you're trying to find a place for yourself or a loved one. And so, one of the things that I recommend on that front is that the SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, on their website, first of all, you can put your zip code in and get a list of treatment facilities. So that can be useful, although they're not vetted, but at least it gives you a place to start. But SAMHSA has what's called an evidence-based toolkit, treatment toolkit. And if you read through that, it'll tell you what should evidence-based treatment look like. And then you could actually use that to ask questions when you're interviewing facilities. Do you do this? Do you do that? Like, for example, one of the things I would ask a treatment facility if I was looking for a loved one is, do you give them a psychological evaluation to see if they have other mental health conditions? If they do, how would it be treated? Will they see a psychiatrist for medication if necessary? Will they get individual therapy or group therapy? Another important question can be, what if they relapse? What are you going to do? Throw them out is the wrong answer. The answer should be, as you suggested, let's figure out how to strengthen the plan. What are we not doing to help them that they need so that we can make their plan stronger and help them? It should be a sort of a more focused effort rather than a, well, good luck as you walk out the door, right? And so those are important. The evidence-based toolkit can help people ask questions so they can at least have some better chance of evaluating, is this a quality facility that cares about my family member and will really help them? Or is this a sort of a turnstile facility that's going to spin a bunch of people through and then kick them to their other facility next door so they can spin them through again?
Yep. And to me, that's my cynical side kicking in, because that's the main motivator. If it was about treating or even solving problems, we would have a different outcome. Anxiety, depression, other mental disorders are just going through the roof. To me, I see it getting worse. And it's just not me. This is even just recent statistics.
Yeah. 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 Well, and the other thing is that we talk sometimes, I feel like drug policy in particular, there's this, when it's discussed, there's sort of this underlying assumption that there is like treatment on demand for everybody. And there isn't. We have a very hole-filled system for mental health treatment in general and for addiction treatment in particular. And we also have a very challenging system for getting help to teenagers. And teenage years are when people are most likely to develop new mental health disorders or have the start of their addiction in teenage years. So part of the problem is we do not have a robust treatment system where everybody who needs the care gets the care. And the reality is, in the long run, if we gave them care promptly, especially in their teenage years, we'd actually save money in the long run because the issue would get resolved and there wouldn't be all the negative consequences that flow from not training people and letting them walk around in misery, which it also impacts the rest of us in a variety of ways. So yeah, it frustrates me when the policy discussions are based around an assumption that there's treatment on demand for everyone when there really is not.
Because it's just, oh, get this needle, take this drug. That's it. Off you go. Come back when you relapse. Just increase the cash flow. That's my thinking. I know there's a lot of truth to what I'm saying here, but it's good to get validation for those who are advocates or experts in this field instead of just, I don't know, friends and family. It's nice that they agree with me, but I also want people who got the backing of personal experience / expertise on that, because that means I'm on the right track of at least understanding this issue, because I don't claim to be a drug expert. I'm just being just honest. I'm not, but I'm curious about learning these things, because I know there is gaps where I could improve. I have a certain family member who is addicted to smoking cigarettes. I know it's stress. I know stress is caused. They want that feel good, but I personally don't know what is the effective replacement. And be honest, I've tried 50 different ideas. I just sort of give up. I'm not judgmental towards that person. I try not to be, maybe joking too much about it is probably not the best way of handling that, because I could take it the wrong way. I'm just being honest. So I'm just saying it out there. If I could fake pretend like, oh no, I don't do anything. Well, no, I don't do that. How dare you accuse me of doing it? No. I'm just gonna say what I probably did was not correct or the best way to support that family member who was. I mean, what can family members and friends do just to be a much better support instead of just feeling sorry for them or or just getting frustrated and impatient.
Yeah, so that old idea, which a lot of us have heard about, called tough love, which is sort of what those intervention shows are based on, which basically is I'm gonna cut you off until you do what I say, when exactly what I tell you to do when I tell you. That actually doesn't have good data. I mean, it works for some people. Everything works for somebody, right? But the best approach for friends and family is called crafts. It's community reinforcement and family training. And craft is more positive reinforcement focused. So it's more about, if they make any step in the positive direction, let's notice that and support them. It's also about having honest conversations, like, what are the drugs doing for you? What need are they meeting? Can we try to get that need met another way? But to have a sort of a conversation that doesn't have a lot of emotion around it. In other words, not an accusatory conversation, which creates defensiveness, but an actual calm conversation. And there's a really excellent book for friends and family called Beyond Addiction. There's a book and a workbook, and it's on Amazon. Everybody can get it. I'm sure it's in most bookstores. And that is based on craft techniques, and it talks about those things, but it also does talk about what friends and family can do and what they can't do. For example, for treatment, it could be helpful for the family member to research facilities and offer up some options, which is very different than demanding that you go here today, right? But it also talks about friends and family have to do self-care. Like, it is a trauma and a stress on the whole family to have somebody that's struggling with a substance use disorder. And the book talks about how the family members can take care of themselves as well. But I do want to emphasize taking the more positive approach. It doesn't mean you have to let yourself be financially abused or verbally abused or physically abused. You can set appropriate limits, but this talks about how to set the limits in a way that's going to be more effective. So that's always what I recommend for friends and family.
Listeners, I really hope you're paying attention to that. You can ignore a lot of the other stuff, but the craft, I hope you really pay attention to that, because this is something that you should be either replaying this, go back, pay attention again. Yes, I'm emphasizing because it's a solution. Okay, I think it's holistic. It doesn't just take care of the addict, even those who are impacted indirectly, families and friends. I mean, this is stuff that needs to be talked about, spread, and put advocacies and maybe expand on these models. I mean, look, I like, for example, and I'm going to get to this a little bit. Not everyone wants a religious style solution. I mean, I totally understand that some people are more secular or scientific based, evidence based solutions. And some people don't. Some people are more logical, scientific minded. Fine. Like I said, I think that just go by what is more compatible with the person. If they believe church is going to do something about it, awesome. They believe rehab somebody's going to do about that problem, awesome. And I just think as long as you try to meet this person's addiction needs, because it is a need. That's why they're addicted. It's filling some sort of need. It's not the best way of doing it, but it is fulfilling some sort of need that is compromising them in one or many ways. I'm just gonna be perfectly honest. Me, what's my addiction? Food. That's an addiction. It's not illegal, but it's still an addiction. When I'm stressed out or bored, I eat this nice looking ice cream. It doesn't always have to be drugs. It's something mental, something going on in there that craves that strong urge that needs to be fulfilled. It can be something as simple as food. Or I want to give a more let me not be judgmental. Let me subtract that. A more interesting example, sniffing stuff. That's an addiction. I think it's a good thing they banned those fruit markers, because as a kid, I was actually addicted to that. I smell watermelon. I smell peach. I was actually an addict to it. I was one of the people in the street said, "Oh wow, he's getting an early start of getting into cocaine and storing that stuff." I was like, this smells like chocolate. I'm happy they actually don't make those markers as much as they used to, because it was actually addicting as a kid. Speaking from anecdotal experience, and I wasn't the only one that was addicted to that. But addiction don't even have to be just drugs. These are more, sadly, I would say, legally loophole addictions that could be just as problematic or more. I think it's more up for debate.
Yeah, I mean, I will point out that alcohol is a drug and it's legal. So it's not about the legality, right? The definition, the core definition of what is an addiction and what is not, is continued use despite notable negative consequences. And that can apply to gambling, that can apply to gaming, that can apply to food, that can apply to sex, that can apply to substance, illicit drugs and legal drugs. It can apply, you're right, to a range of behaviors. But that's the way you think about it. Sometimes people throw away around that addiction word a little casually. I think you're talking about it in a more serious way, but that's the definition. Is the behavior, because they are all what's called behavioral disorders, is the behavior causing you notable negative consequences and yet you continue doing it? Now it's a problematic behavior.
Listeners, I'm going to keep bothering you. I'm going to keep annoying you. Pay attention. Pay attention. I don't care if I'm antagonizing you right now. This is solutions here. Drop your emotional Kool-Aid. Open your ears here. This is actually important stuff to listen to. You can forget all the other stuff I've said. I won't even care as much. This is something I need to pick up. I am being your audio, your vocal annoying highlighter right now. Rewind this if you have to. Again, rewind this because this is actually valuable stuff here that you're talking about. This is not just to make myself feel good, even though it partially does, but that's besides the point. This is something that I'm learning as a host. Hosts don't know everything. Hosts are just willing to guide a conversation in a certain direction. That's the most casual definition I give as a host. That's it. They don't know everything. They definitely don't know everything. They don't know everything either, but they certainly have insight that is valuable. See, she has got insight when it comes to addiction. So pay attention to that. All right? Just pay attention. I just really need you to pay attention because this is very valuable stuff here. And trust me, if I have so much free time, this could easily go on for 3 hours. I am just saying that right now. But sadly, Mary Beth and I, we are busy people. Okay, maybe we could do another reschedule. We'll see. Okay, and I won't be surprised. I will definitely like to invite her back. I'm just being very honest. This is very valuable stuff. Rather you believe in God or not, that's more of you. That's your personal choice. Okay, I don't believe in force on that. You make that choice. You live by it. You live by the good, the bad, ugly, whatever. No, and that's what I'm going to say about that. That's entirely up to you. Some people live fine lives. I know a few people, but this is about addiction here. And if God ends up being your solution, awesome. And if you find a solution without Him, which is the guest's case here, awesome. I'm a pragmatic person. Whatever works for you, that's all I care about. I'm pragmatic at that aspect.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, look, so I see a couple things on the sort of the faith-based versus non-faith-based recovery. And one of them, so 12 steps, is really, it requires a higher power. Now, it does say you can define your higher power, but it requires it. But I will say, first of all, I did my recovery way that worked for me. For a lot of people, 12 steps does work for them. I'm happy for them. I support them in that. But I'll also say that it's not like there's this hard line where all the faith-based people go to 12 steps and all the non-faith-based people go to other peer support groups like Life Rings, Secular Recovery, or She Recovers, or Smart Recovery. There are actually atheists and agnostics that make 12 steps work. And there are a lot of faith-based and spiritual people in the other programs because they prefer them for reasons other than higher power. So they may prefer Life Ring because our program is about building a personal, individualized recovery plan. And we talk a lot about that. And the emphasis is on building up your sober self. It's a self-empowerment focus. So there's not a hard split between all the faith-based people go here and all the non-faith people that go there. But for those who have faith, that can be a help in recovery. I mean, for some people, knowing that they have a God or however they define it on their side can make them feel less stressed or more optimistic about the future, So it's really about what's right for you, what's going to help you, what techniques work for you as a whole package, not just on the faith or not faith side. And the other thing I'll say about that is that the data shows that actually it doesn't matter as far as success goes. So there is a study that compared the effectiveness of AA, Life Ring, Secular Recovery, Smart Recovery, and Women for Sobriety and found out they all work equally well. And so what's important is that people pick where they're most comfortable. Because what I see is just read up on those 4 and maybe She Recovers and Recovery Dharma. Those are the 6 largest. 1 or 2 of those groups are going to sound like my people are there. Go to that one. You'll be the most comfortable. You'll feel like you're talking to people that think like you, have a perspective like you. You're going to have a better chance of success. And that's all I ever care about. I'm on the board for Life Ring. I don't care if people pick Life Ring. I want them to pick where they're going to be, where they're going to have the best chance of succeeding and building a stable recovery. That's all I care about.
That's very true. See, she covers the nuances, I would say, effortlessly here. Yeah, because it's not always, oh, hey, all religious people go there. Her organization, all the atheists go there. No, it's normally mixed. They just go by what solution is compatible to them. And that I think that's something that's not being mentioned a lot. And I think that's why I feel like I have to be the one that says it. And of course, having guests that backs me up, even saying that you worded it totally different, but it ends up being the same thing, at least at core value. It's great. I just think that one size fits all has been, or these cheap quick solutions. I mean, they work short term at best, but long term, it just the effects die out, so it's practically nothing. And we need something that works individual. That's like the individual base plan, as opposed to okay, everyone just have this nicotine patch. Okay, nicotine patch for you. Nicotine patch for you. Nicotine patch for you. We got candy. Oh, nicotine patch for you. I'm not sure if nicotine patch can help with a candy addiction, but nicotine patch for you. My point is, one size don't fits all. It's a bad example, but you get my point.
Well, the other thing I'll say about that is, for example, treatment. Not everybody needs to go inpatient. Like you see on movies and TV, everybody goes in for 28 or 30 days. Well, first of all, 28 or 30 days is often not long enough for some people. Like I went in for, my program was 90-day minimum and I really needed longer term, but not everybody has to go inpatient. There are also outpatient programs that are only like a couple nights a week. So you can live at home and you can go to work and yet you can be in treatment in the evenings. You can, there are therapists and doctors who have special training in addiction that can help you, including there are medications for alcohol use disorder and opioid use disorder. There are what are called peer support specialists or recovery coaches that help people through the process to do an evaluation and build a plan and work with them. And then there are the peer support groups like 12 Steps and Life Ring. I mean, there's a variety of options, and it's not like everybody first goes inpatient and then they do this. And no, even if people could benefit from inpatient, a lot of people can't go because they don't have insurance that will cover it and they don't have cash. But for sometimes they also need it because not everyone is at the same severity in their addiction. So substance use disorder, like all mental health conditions, is on a curve: mild, moderate, or severe. You can have a mild version, a moderate version, or a severe version. Well, if you have a mild to moderate version, you probably don't need to go inpatient. At least you don't need to start there unless other approaches have failed. It's the sort of the treatment landscape, or what your recovery plan landscape should be, is really varied on a number of factors, like how severe is your addiction? Do you have insurance or cash? Where do you live geographically and what do you have access to? Do you have a co-occurring mental health disorder as well? Are you going to work on this with your friends and family or not? I mean, there's a lot of different factors that go into the right plan, and it's not ever going to be one size fits all. If all you have access to is like, this is the only program in my, geographic area that I can actually get into, do your best to make it work. And one of the nice things today is that there's internet access to a lot of options. So even if you're not in the best fit, you can supplement that by going to, let's say, a peer support group like Life Ring or She Recovers that will help you because what you're forced into isn't the right fit. But ideally, do your best to try to find a place that, a plan that's going to fit your personal circumstances and your personal ability to access it.
Listeners, and viewers, I just hope you are just paying attention to this, because attention is one of your most value commodities. Forget money and all that other stuff. That's secondary. If you're paying attention to junk, you're going to get junk. If you're paying attention to solutions, even though you're dealing with this problem, things will turn around. Just like she said, it could be short term for like the mild to moderate addictions, and to severe, it's going to be long. What do we mean by long? Maybe months, even years. As long as you are not giving up. Let's go back to persistence and definitely patience. Two powerful P's. Okay. I think it's gonna work out, because I knew another family member who was a clinical, he had mental problems, and medication works well for this one. I mean, medication works well. Personally, I'm against it, but I'm not him, right? I can't project my own personal opinion. Oh, I don't think you should take medications. I mean, he's going to make you go a little more crazy. See, now I'm becoming the problem. I'm the external problem. But medication has proven to work great for this family member. And then the other one, he's definitely anti-medication. So medication's not going to work for the other one. So that's why individual plans are important. Oh, medicate, medicate, medicate. That's not, I don't think that's needed for all cases. Some cases, of course, yeah. I'm not completely dismissive, but that's why we need individual plans. I think that's a better solution as opposed to, okay, just nicotine for everybody, medication for everybody, and get out. Come back when you screw up again. So, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, and I mean the medication for opioid use disorder and alcohol use disorder, a lot of people are on it short term. Some people do need it longer term, but for a lot of people, it's to get them through that early, like 3 to 6 month period where the cravings are the worst. And the data shows, like for example, the medication for opioid use disorder cuts the risk of dying from an overdose more than in half. You know, 50 to 60% less risk. So they can be important, but it is an individual assessment as to what they're comfortable with, but also how long do they need the medication. But you don't need to decide that on day one. You don't know. Just know that many people do get off of it in a few months. But it can be a bridge, sort of a bridge to help during the worst of the craving times. And I mean, I think with alcohol in particular, we focus so much on the illicit drugs, but the reality is that alcohol is still killing more Americans than the overdoses, even though are having an overdose epidemic. And I think we underappreciate that. Alcohol is the most used drug other than tobacco. Tobacco kills more than alcohol and all the other drugs combined, but alcohol kills more than all of the overdoses combined from all the drugs. And so it's still an ongoing issue. And there's definitely medication that can help people get through the early craving period of alcohol use disorder. So there's that. But I will also go back to one thing about the patience and persistence. I want to throw out there, look, I've got 31 years of sobriety. Okay. You're not meeting me at 3 months. Okay. I didn't like the patience and persistence thing either. Like I was 32 years old when I got sober. I had a Berkeley degree and good grades and an embarrassing resume because I couldn't hold a job for 10 years because I was using meth. And I wanted, like many of us, I wanted to leap ahead. Like, let me fix it, like make up for lost time, like that's your impulse. But I had to rein it in. I had to rein it in because it wasn't going to work. Like there was no way, just say professionally, nobody was going to hire me for a career job, but I also wasn't ready for it, And so I really had to force myself to get realistic about like, where am I and what am I ready to handle and what can I actually attain? And the other thing for me was that I would fall at the very severe end of that spectrum because it was shooting meth for a very long time. But I had broken so many things that when I got home from rehab, I made a list of everything to work on. And that list was like, I don't know, 18 or 20 items long. And it turned out it wasn't even comprehensive. There was more, but you can't work on 20 things on day one. You can't, it's impossible. So I had to like prioritize. Like I picked 5 things. I picked my sobriety, working on my trauma, trying to get back to work, my relationship with my partner, which was on the edge of collapse, and trying to get my debt under control. And everything else I said, it has to wait. And don't get me wrong, again, I didn't want to wait, but there was no way to start working on that whole list in the beginning. And so part of it is just that you have to be practical and realistic, even though you might not like it. I didn't like it either, but it was the only way forward. It really was the only way forward.
Let me hear that. She had so much problems. She had to laser in, I'll probably say the top 5. Feel free to correct me. I'm talking about when you hear what to work on before she gets to the rest of the 13.
Yes.
And that's definitely more realistic and pragmatic and manageable. I gotta say, even though I would still say still tough, those are really I'll say the key 5 that if you neglect those even further, I don't want to imagine what would happen next. I'm just gonna put that little black box and just lock it up because we don't want to go there. Let's just say it's gonna be far more. She will not be here. Let's just say that. That's one possibility. Okay. Or she could have been just a lifelong addict, and this is actually inspirational. That's why I like with certain people, especially with certain difficult stories, to say, look, you can overcome this. That's the main message here. I'm sure you have more, but one of them is you can overcome this.
Yes, yes.
Late starter too. I'll say pretty late starter too, because a lot of people in their 30s or 40s, they feel like it's hopeless. Oh, I'm going to be this way for the rest of my life. So this little subtle ageist component in there, I think needs to be addressed as well. I feel like it's too old to change all this. I'm an addict for life. I'm a fat person for life. I'm a poor person for life. You don't know that. If you make changes, I'm sure things could get better. But I think a lot of people get stuck, that fixed mindset, if you will. That, oh, like this the rest of my life. Who cares? Go right ahead. I want to hear your valuable insight.
Well, part of all I'll say is that when I got sober at 32, I mean, first of all, I felt ancient. And I had I knew I had wasted my education. I was in a bad place, but I also thought, well, yes, life can get better, but it can only sort of get this better, to here. I really felt like, yeah, but there's going to be a cap on how much better it can get because I just wasted and destroyed so much. But it turned out that wasn't true. Like professionally, when I got home from rehab, I did not think one day I'll be a judge. Like that wasn't on my radar, right? What I thought was, let me not get fired again. Like that was my first professional goal. Let's not get fired again, right? Like that was really where I was. And so my first job was like a temporary part-time admin job. And then my second job was like a full-time permanent mid-level job. And then I got a job at a bigger company and I got a promotion. And then at 6 years, and I emphasize 6.5 actually years sober, I went to Berkeley Law School, 6.5 years. And I worked as a lawyer for a long time. And at 20 years sober, I was appointed a federal judge, 20 years. And so it was really always about what's the right next step? And how do I prepare myself to be able to take that right next step, but it was incremental. I never thought when I got sober that I would end up a judge, but even more than that, I never thought my life would be as happy and productive and rewarding as it is. I mean, the important part of recovery is getting out of the chaos, right? Like now I can be a good wife and a good aunt and and a good member of my community as well as my professional accomplishments, and I can be happy and spend time doing activities I enjoy. I mean, life is more rewarding and fulfilling and enjoyable than I could even imagine when I first entered sobriety. So there's a lot to look forward to, a lot to look forward to.
From junkie to judge, you can overcome it. Like a federal judge at that, not just some local claim small time judge. Federal judge. That's a very high position. Okay? You think all of them are squeaky clean and all of that? Perfect backgrounds. There's no such thing, let's be honest. That's the perception that's put in front of us, or the assumptions we make because they have such a prestigious position. Now, this human must have been perfect. That's not true. There's always blemishes somewhere. We're human. We're not, mystical beings that's supposed to be flawless. And, we got this meat suit that is, prone to addiction and decay and obesity, all these bad things. We're in this meat suit that's prone to all these things. So, we all got issues, but it is manageable and you could overcome it. That's at least, I would say, one of the main messages. And look, it's never too late, too. Another one you could throw in there. It's never too late. That's another one, and I'm sure she got like 20 trillion more because it's her story, not mine. But based on what I'm gathering here, those are at least some of the key ones. And listeners, chime in, see what messages you could get out of it after listening to this. I will say amazing conversation. I actually enjoyed it. I know it was going to be great, but it even beat my high expectations. This is even better than I thought. So I already had like a scale from 1 to 10. I had an expectation of 8. I would say it easily hit a 10 for me. I was even engaged. I was interested in myself. I feel like I was a participant sometimes. So if you make a host feel like a participant in a very engaging way, I would say that's an awesome guess. And look, I could throw in Pod Match because Pod Match is so much more organized. But I've learned how to work without that system. I had to kind of go backwards. I always like to work without that system. Not gonna lie, it tested my patience and persistence at times. I had to look through email threads, which I became a spoiled brat. I got addicted to an easy process. Even addiction there, an easy process because it was so easy. We get addicted to things because it's easy. I mean, easy convenience is an addiction. I know that's a little bit of a hot take, but it doesn't have to be drugs or even gambling and all that. But even being, and I'm being brutally honest with myself, I made it very easy for me. Yeah. I had to do a 10-step approach instead of a 5-step approach, which I'm so used to doing. But hey, if I would have just be prejudiced against Pod Match, all I'm going to say is this interview would have never happened. I was like, oh, this person had Pod Match. Oh, forget it. Who cares? Who cares? I'm going to do all this work. I got better things to do. But you know what? I even challenged myself, and I got to whip myself to shape. Dang it, Elias, get it together. You didn't mind digging through all this stuff before. What made you lazy? What made you so freaking lazy all of a sudden? And look, and you gotta discipline yourself too. because if you just let yourself go, you're going to be let go. And so that's all I'm going to say about that. So enough about me and my silly little issues, lighthearted issues here. But I hope you're just getting something out of this because I really think, especially from her story and with her insights, I hope you pay attention to her even more. Yeah, see, I'm not the ego driven. I'm just guiding the conversation because I'm curious myself. Because I would like to learn how to be better, and there was blind spots where I'm sure I could have been more effective. So just saying, oh, this person's an addict. There's no hope for him or her. Who cares? I sometimes I just give up. Just say that just because I give up. I feel hopeless and despair. You don't have to be powerless, and you can even take care of yourself while you take care of the other person. It's not, sometimes you have to be a little bit selfish just to take care of yourself before you can care for others. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it makes sense. Because you can't always take care of everybody if you're not taking care of yourself. That's how you collapse. So, and I'm touching more on the communal, family, friends impact of someone who is an addict, at least a diagnosed addict. We all, I think a lot of us are addicts in one way or another. Just some of us been caught and diagnosed, and some are not. As a little bit of hot take, I'm not diagnosed as an addict, but I am an addict in certain things. I already said food. All right. And that's something I need to be working on. I need to find a personal approach that's good for me. Like for me, walking outside, see beautiful scenery is good exercise for me. If you tell me to go to the gym, I will happily curse you out. Is he trying to kill me? But if I go outside, even jog, get that fresh air, I'm happy. I'm happy. So that's why individual plan is important. Tell me to go to the gym, I'm a totally different person. I'm demonic, I'll be combative. I said, I don't go there, smell all that sweaty filth and all of that. Yes, it's coming from a man. Yeah, I'm a little bit of high standard. You can say I have a very feminine nose, a sensitive nose. I don't care. I'm proud of saying that. I'm not gonna go there, deal with that rotten sock smell, dirty equipment, filthy bathrooms, dirty lockers. I refuse to do that. No, thank you. But if you tell me to go jog out there and I can wash myself at home, you got my attention. What's a nice spot you could take me to? Now you got my attention. If you tell me to go to the gym, you're gonna get my middle finger. So that's why individual plan is important. It's a little bit silly and comical. This is why individual plan is important. What works for this person? Okay, so that's all I'm gonna say. Enough for my yarn. Let's do a massive shameless plug. She got a lot of products. She got her lovely book, From Junkie to Judge, a very provocative title that's sure to get your attention. Get that, and I also gonna link to her website, which has some good short articles from various newspapers. Well, I call it news sites because let's be real, newspaper is nearly extinct. Look, don't get me wrong. Every once in a while, I like to feel the paper, even though I'm a millennial. Yeah, you call it nostalgia because as a kid, I used to hold papers until the internet grew big, and I didn't need that as much. That's more of a me issue right there. But news sites, I mean, she gave some great articles. I was even, listening to her video. I mean, give it a listen. Go to her site. And what's the organization that you're a part of again? For some reason, I'm blanking out.
Yeah, so my website is junkie2judge.com. And also, if people forget, they can just look for Junkie Judge, and I'm really Googleable at this point. But those articles are articles that I wrote that I had published in different, the LA Times and Recovery Today and others. But I'm on the board for Lifering Secular Recovery, which is peer support. And I'm also on the board for She Recovers Foundation, which is also peer support for women. But She Recovers isn't just for substance recovery. It's also for mental health, trauma, other behavioral disorders like we talked about, overwork, perfectionism. It's for whatever the women are in recovery from, because most people that have a substance addiction have one or more of those other things to work on. And in She Recovers, you can talk about it all together. And then I will also throw out that I'm on X, Twitter at Mary Beth O _ and Blue Sky, Mary Beth O'Connor. And on my social media, I do not argue with people, but I will provide like articles and studies and my recovery thoughts. And so if people are interested in those, they can always follow me there.
I would say LinkedIn is better for that, is have that
Well,
professional
LinkedIn,
approach
yes.
because that link is really tailored to that professional networking and all that. And I'm sure you're not going to have the trolls curse you out, call you all kinds of names just because they disagree with you. They feel attacked because you have a different idea. Different ideas doesn't mean they're attacking you. Disagreement does not equal hate. How many times I have to yell this? Oh, I'm getting addicted to just saying this statement. I don't know. I should be addicted just to saying that idiotic statement. Grow up, people. Please, just grow up. I'm sure you don't pay attention to them, but just just calling people names or the other person that she is arguing against. Look, you treat it like it's a Lincoln. I think Lincoln will be. I mean, Lincoln is perfectly better for that because at least we have more professional people. Now it's like 99.99% of the time, as opposed to Twitter and Facebook. Well, Facebook's a mixed bag. Twitter is. Some people are just really nasty. I'm just being honest. It's not me being left wing. It's just analysis. Choose whatever platform is good for you. I'm not gonna say cancel this or cancel that. I don't support that either. You go for what's best for you. You love arguing. You love being vicious. Twitter is good for you. Yes, I refuse to call it X. I think it's a stupid rebranding, in my opinion. The lefties agree with me on that. Yeah, I'm with the left on that one. Heartily with the left on. I think that's such a stupid rebrand. But all right, let me be quiet. Just wrap this up because look, I could get addicted to talking about problems. That's more of a psychological addiction. I'll say it's good to some degree, but if you get fixated, of course, that's a problem. That's why it's an addiction because prolonged, you do something that you do repeatedly and has negative consequences. You're aware of it, but you just keep doing it, doing it, doing it, doing it because it fills that urge that needs to be fulfilled immediately. It's not great, but not all addictions have to be drugs and material. It's psychological and behavior. It's behavior based at the end of the day. And doesn't always need alcohol or food or anything like that. So that's the reason why I'm bringing up these silly examples. But they can relate to addiction. So people are addicted to conflict. It makes them alive, makes them feel alive, But hey, it's been great having Mary Beth. I was just, I could have slipped up, said Mary Poppins for whatever silly reason because I'm thinking about something pretty positive right now and just mixing things up together. This is why sometimes my brain goes like 200 miles per hour, thinking like too many things, and you got to kind of keep it, focused, right? That's why discipline is very important. Anything else you want to add before I wrap this up?
I guess the only thing I'll add is that people can message me through my website. So if anybody has any questions or about anything I said or other speaking opportunities, feel free to reach out to me through my website.
Alrighty then. So now for my shameless plug-in part. Join Pod Match if you want to make my life a little easier. It has a beautiful one page. It has a nice setup. Questions always ready to answer. Put your achievements, social medias, websites, what have you. Join Pod Match. I'll put the link right there. Give a like, subscribe, give a review at Apple Podcasts. If you're doing that on Spotify, I will ignore you because I don't care about Spotify's opinion. I only use it as a playlist. That's it. I'm not treating it like it's a business. I'm not treating that site like it's a business for me. Page at your Apple Podcast. Go to Buzzsprout as well. Leave an opinion. Leave a comment. What you like, what you don't like. And, sadly, I even welcome you haters. Just voice your opinion. Use this as a little therapy session just to let out your hate and you'll be ignored. I'll just use it for analysis of, this person is miserable. Not even worth the answer. But if it's constructive, it adds, value to the conversation, I will respond. But if it's, I'm going to say this initial vulgar, F your mom, for example, I'm not responding to that. I'm just not. I refuse to be addicted to that conflict. So it is just a waste of my time. So if you went through this whole episode of video and audio content, great. I thank you. And all I can say is just have a blessed day.